Roslyn, one of the 20 Golden Palm world premieres screened yesterday, and tell us, it was a very emotional moment.
Yes, Amanda, in the main hall in the Festival Palace, Canadian Xavier Dolan's latest film, Matthias and Maxime, was received to very loud applause. Dolan visibly moved, struggling to hold back the tears. Amanda, the film's a love story between two old school friends, close friends. Maxime, who has a sort of rough life as a barman, dealing with a manic depressive mother, and Matthias, who comes from a comfortable background, is a lawyer and married. Maxime, played by Dolan himself, is about to leave Quebec for a new life in Australia, where he and Matthias, played by Gabriel d'Almeida Freitas, are confronted with a potentially life-changing question: what kind of love do they share? Here's an extract, which is in French, in Québécois, where Matthias' affectionate mother, Francine, discusses with the group of friends with Maxime ahead of his leaving party.
Le père de Matt, hein? Un beau grand portugais, connaît ses vins, parle plus fort que tout le monde.
Bon, moi, les gars, je vous dis bye. Tu viens pas chez Charlie?
Hein? Ben là, le beau Benjamin.
Ouais, mais c'est pour vrai, je suis brûlé.
Ah ouais. Franchement, je croyais que tu voulais...
Hey,
OK, mais si tu veux savoir ce que j'en pense...
Félix Moquette qui va être déçu. Il fait un beau film étudiant, là. J'ai dit que t'étais une...
Ah, ta gueule, décroche.
Blague, Matt. Oh, et...
Non, mais je comprends pas, Matt.
Ça fait longtemps que tu le sens, en plus.
Ouais, mais j'ai ma semaine dans le corps, je suis brûlé, puis...
Matt, peux-tu parler, s'il te plaît?
De toute façon, Max, on se voit bien que tu parles?
Oh, ouais, c'est pas ça.
On se texte?
Matt.
Now, in this extract, we only hear the musicality of the accent, unless, of course, you're Québécois. We don't hear the music, however, composed especially for the film by Jean-Michel Blais, our special guest today. Hello, Jean-Michel. Thank you for coming to RFI's studio on the Croisette today.
It's a pleasure to be in the sun with you. It's amazing here. Beautiful.
Now, let's listen, first of all, to a piece of your beautiful romantic piano composition for the film called La Solitude, Solitude. Now that's amazingly romantic, haunting, pensive music. Jean-Michel, where did the inspiration come for the composition of this music and the other music in Xavier Dolan's film?
I mean, it comes from, I guess, a lot of places, but to make sure about this, Xavier and I, when we met, he showed me a bunch of music that he would like, his music to sound a bit like. And I've been struck by this piece from Schubert, like a second movement of a sonata. And I think it's interesting that you're pointing at romantic music, because Schubert being like probably one of the first romantics. And he showed me this moment, and it's a movement in the shape of like theme and variation, and I thought it was very interesting, because that's what, to me, like music in a film is, like variation on a theme, like how this evolves, and that's where it started. We're like, why not taking from it but bringing it to 21st century and having like a so-called like cinematographic variation on this somehow lost Schubert theme. So that's why this is so like a structure and shape behind, but we get lost through and with the characters, I guess, and we explore all different kind of avenues of where this music could lead us. And there's something very this particular one, La Solitude, is like, I remember when this happened, like Xavier was there just beside me, he was explaining me how the scene would be, and I was just there like messing around, like sort of improvising on this, and we decided at the end to keep this improvisation for the film, because there was something so strong about, like when I listen to it right now, I hear some quote unquote mistakes, because I'm like, this wasn't planned, but the loving those imperfections. I think that's the beauty of the film somehow, and of the music. So that's a bit how this worked out. Yeah.
So you and Xavier Dolan were imagining the film at that stage and the music that went with it?
It went many directions, right? So sometimes at first Xavier had he has just some still image, has nothing to show me. So we would read a bit parts of scenario, and then I will improvise stuff, and we sort of did some rough demos with it, and sometimes Xavier would play the demos while they were shooting the film, and the actors had to play on the music, like we just heard, like in the background. Especially this piece actually was playing in the background while they were shooting the scene. So then you have this interesting connection, and somehow, like I would say, unorthodox way to work, because usually you wait till the end, you have your picture lock, and then you just compose the music. So and then we'd come back in studio with some images, and then we would like refine things, like extending, like composing new sections. So we really had this close relationship between scenario, images, Xavier and I in studio. It was just beautiful, creative, I don't know, something very simple at the same time.
It's a real marriage of music and film, in fact. You're described actually as a post-classical composer, musician. It seems narrow and yet broad at the same time. How would you describe your work?
I think it's always problematic to label things in the era we're living, right? It's always better when you look at the past. A lot of people call it like neoclassical, which is also problematic because it refers to some era, like big enough 20th century. So like that's not the kind of music I'm doing. I think post-classical refers in a way that it's a postmodern attitude where you take bits and chunks from what happened. So sometimes my music goes in a very like Berlin minimal, like electronic dance music, and sometimes it goes towards like a trance 90s music, and just here like we're much closer to some like Schubert, like romantic era, and so on. We go I go very different directions, but there's always so far the piano at the center of it, and I think it's just a way to look back at acoustic music, instrumental music, well, electronic in some cases, but for sure I guess the post refers that is classical music era somehow over, in the sense that now it's consumed in very restricted ways in big halls, and you're told when to applaud and how to interpret things. It's somehow like it's fixed in time sometimes, I fear, and I think they're place to re-question it and rethink it, and it's curious. Like I'm at my shows, it's piano music, right, and I get a bunch of like young kids and like young, I don't know, hipsters, and and couple, like everyone comes and just want to be there in those moments and reconnect maybe to the emotion we've lost sometimes. And I'm not saying anything against classical music. I'm a big fan and I think it needs to be there, but it feels more like visiting a museum than actually being in what's happening right now. So I think there's this big movement now, like we're many doing this sort of reconnection to instrument, to instrumental music.
This is, I think, the second film score you've worked on.
It's actually the first one, yeah.
This is the first one?
Yeah.
This is the first one. Is this going to make any difference to your work in the future, and are you working on more film scripts now? Is it an experience you'd like to repeat?
I loved it so much, and I would start again anytime. Also, being like, I guess, an artist myself, I like to produce my own albums, and I think there's a very humbling experience to this, which is I'm serving a greater genius, or like at the service of someone who's got the vision, and I'm allowed to play within a restricted area, and it's something very soothing to be there. It's just you do the best you can in this area, and someone else taking care of the rest, and I think that's it's like a break, and it's like you're focusing on something. It's a very different way to look at it, and the soundtrack is so different. You cannot have very strong, powerful music that overtakes the image or the scenario. You need to work. It's teamwork, and I work often alone. Like a pianist is often rehearsing alone, playing alone. Like you have a rehearsal with an orchestra or some other instrument, but you're often more in your little bubble. So here, very much, it's such a great experience. And to me, cinema is like the new opera. Somehow that's the new version of it. So this is the greatest. All the arts meet somehow, and you're part of this big thing. So I would for sure love. I mean, this is the best start I could have ever imagined. Like I mean, it's just, and now being in Cannes with the sun and the sea is just, well, it's like I don't believe it somehow. But at the same time, I would love to do that again when the occasion fits. Like Xavier is like, we have this connection. Like I've seen all this film. We have this Québécois thing together, and now like a growing, or an artistic friendship, I would say, and it's so powerful. So I need to believe like it needs to be a project that I believe in.
One last quick word,
Yep.
perhaps, then, Jean-Michel Blais. Your work on Matthias and Maxime is in the running for one of the parallel awards at Cannes this year, the Soundtracks Award for Best Film Score. What's your take on the idea of film music awards, or is it something too new for you?
I think it's something we could talk forever.
Unfortunately, we have about 30
no,
seconds.
I know. I get the point. It's difficult for Cannes to allow prizes for soundtrack, as it would probably be, because then what would you do with like a dress up or like makeup, and like it just open like a Pandora box, right? But at the same time, I think it's nice that it's being tolerated and recognized, and this Cannes soundtrack to give place to this act of art that music is somehow a character, a hidden character, like so many others, of course. But it's nice that it's existing here.
Jean-Michel Blais, thank you very much for being with us today here in Cannes. We wish you and the whole team on Xavier Dolan's Matthias and Maxime the very best here this year. The film is in the running for the Golden Palm, and you for the music composition of the film in the Soundtracks Award. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rosanna.